Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council, Parish President Cochran. I'd like to take a moment. It was a year ago I stood here and I took this position. I was confirmed, and I knew I had a really good staff. And I just want to say, after a year, my staff is fantastic. They do a phenomenal job. Very proud of them, and they embody what is teamwork. And I appreciate their efforts this year. So moving forward, I just felt the need to say that. Thank you. So what we're going to look at here, and this will be very, very short, but we're going to talk about basically our 10-year review and comparison of our statistics over the past 10 years. As you see in 2015, these are all classified in our different general emergencies, alerts, site area emergencies, and unusual events. Obviously, unusual events are the smaller of the events, and general emergency are our largest. And they're the lowest classification. So we had 175 last year in 2015, which is a little bit uptick from the past years, as you can tell, but that was due to our EMAP accreditation requirements, changing our procedures and doing some things a little bit differently in our reporting that increased our numbers. And you can see in 2016 that held true just as we predicted last year. So example of some of our major weather events that we would have for general emergencies, if you look at them, most of those are going to be hurricane, anything that affects the whole parish, where we're going to take protective actions, and which could be an evacuation of that sort. So those are lower numbers. Obviously, over the past few years, we've had a few less than in years past. So that's a good statistic. So a 10-year review and comparison. So if we look at our 10-year average from 2007 to 2016, we've had 126 basically unusual events. 7.1 alerts, which is the next classification where we actually do take protective actions, and then all the way down to one site area emergency, and then one general emergency, or 0 general emergencies last year, which was good. So if you look at our current, this particular year, we have 85 unusual events, which is quite a few. I say quite a few, but more than we were expecting from last year. And so those numbers will probably be in line at the end of this year, and we'll probably be somewhere in the 170, 180 mark. We've had 7 alerts, and again, just one site area emergency and no general emergencies. So log entries. So these are the phone calls that come in. So we're like a call center. We're the only 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365-day a year EOC in the state, which we're very proud of. We provide a lot of customer service, and a lot of phone calls come in that are important to that customer calling. It's not even emergency related. It might be emergency in their mind, but to us, it's just another call. We want to make sure that we get that resolved. So right now, our current number as of today, we have 6,140 current calls coming into the EOC at this point. And those can be, like I said, from anything from, hey, I have a busted water main, to something very major, which could be an industry. So we look at our activations for this year, for 2016, 2017, and I'll touch on just a few that are really kind of stand out to you. Fortunately, what you don't see up here, knock on wood, is a hurricane and or any tropical storm. But we did have some tornado warnings, which caused us to go to alert, which is the next level above the unusual event. And then we've had one site area emergency, as we remember, the pipeline fire down in Parish, which lasted about 3 days. So your tornado warnings, as you see in there, we had quite a few. Obviously remember the one in February that went through and came into in New Orleans East. That came right through the Hahnville area. Fortunately, it didn't touch down, but that was a serious one that we took protective actions on, as we always do when we sound the sirens. And then we had a fuel tanker truck fire on the I-310 that sent us into an alert. So those are just some of the few. So we categorize these, or classify these events into different categories. Obviously, industrial, homeland security, natural, miscellaneous. So you look at the homeland security and you're thinking to yourself, well, we don't have any terrorist events here, but I can explain that a little bit further. So you have industry all along the river. You have vehicles and suspicious folks taking pictures and doing things of that nature. So they have to be investigated. So when we get those phone calls into our call center, we'll dispatch or contact the 911 center. They'll dispatch the authorities, and they'll go out there and they'll identify whoever those folks are and whether they're nefarious in any way, shape, or form. So that's the Homeland Security number. Your miscellaneous can be any, like a non-fixed asset, could be a river flooding, could be anything of that nature that is not of a major event, but it does count, and that's where our current numbers were in 2016. So a list of our activities and exercises, we've had quite a few over the few months that that I've been here with the 1 year. The one that really stands out to us is a state hurricane exercise that we did in April, where we actually go through a full-scale exercise. We stand up the EOC in our communications center, and we walk through every piece and part of what it takes to get us through a hurricane. We get on the conference calls with GOSIP. We walk through every step of the way to the point to where we feel comfortable with our plans and our procedures, and if we don't, we make those changes then before the season gets on top of us. We also have a Region 3 hurricane tabletop exercise we had in May, and then our big one coming in December for SCORE is the Water for 3 exercise, which is important for them and us because it kind of shows us where we are as an EOC and if we can handle that type of event. Anytime you have nuclear in your community, you want to make sure that you can handle that event. And of course, back in May, I'll go back to the top, we had our assisted evacuation exercise, which went very, very well, learned a few things, and I think that take back is going to be beneficial moving forward if we were to have an event this season. So hurricanes. So I have a few numbers here, if you just give me an opportunity to read these. 2016, as you can see, those are the path of most of our Atlantic Basin hurricanes, or all of the Atlantic hurricane bases, and you only have a few in there that we paid very close attention to. Certainly was Hermine, was one, Colin, and Matthew, if you remember. Of course, we watch all of them that develop, no matter where they develop, whether it be off the coast of Africa or they develop down in the Gulf and the Caribbean area. We watch them very, very closely. However, those three gained our attention, especially the Hermine, because it kind of hung around for quite some time. And if you got our situational reports from me, you probably were getting those every day, and it was like, when's this thing going to get out of here, or when's it going to turn? But we do track them, and we were very fortunate in 2016 that we did not have any visit our area. So this is what everybody wants to see as the predictions for, and if you don't mind, I want to go back real quick to that slide. In 2016, just to give you the numbers, we had 15 total storms, 7 hurricanes, 4 major. And with that, across the country, we had 743 fatalities, $16.1 billion in damage nationwide. So, and those are storms that obviously didn't affect us in any way, shape, or form, but it did affect the country. And as we always say, it only takes one storm to really ruin your whole summer and change the things. So to this season, so our season is, we look at the National Hurricane Center and Colorado State University for the predictions, who are very, very good at forecasting. So good that I said today in a staff meeting that over the past 25 years, they've only been off one storm every year. So if they tell you there's going to be 11 to 17, you can pretty much bank there's going to be 11 to 17 storms, named storms. So this year they're looking at 5 to 9, the official numbers, and 2 to 4 major hurricanes, which is an average year as the El Nino event starts to kind of slow and go into a neutral cycle. And we hope Phil Klotzbach at Colorado State University is correct, and we go back into an El Nino instead of going into a La Nina event, which affects all of our storms. So, but their accuracy is very, very good, and as we always say, it only takes that one storm out of all of those to come to us, and certainly ruin our summer. So we've all seen these before. This is a slosh model, but what's important about this is Isaac. And I believe we showed it last year, but it begs to show again, mainly because it's important that we understand this is real data. This is it was supposed to come in as a tropical storm. Obviously, it came in as a Category 1, and these are real numbers and real water heights in the parish that we experienced. Certainly, there's a very good tool that we continue to use, and we use it for modeling for future storms and things of that nature and what could happen. And of course, as the storms get closer, we'll run these models in a more real-time event and try to get the more accurate numbers. So with this storm, we'll go back and just so we don't get complacent here, and we talk about what can really happen. As we had, we had major damage in St. Charles Parish of 464, either whether it be commercial or residential. And you can see the numbers there with major damage at 59 total, moderate damage at 48, and then the minor damage at 357. So even though that storm really didn't affect us greatly, it more was our neighbors to the west, it did have some effect, and it was a small storm perspective. So when you start thinking about storms and size, it really doesn't take a huge size to a storm to affect you negatively. So here's our potential storm surge map. This is a product that's going to be utilized by the National Hurricane Center. They started last year, and what this allows to happen is that you're able to, first of all, it's no longer experimental. This is going to be something that you can use, the public's going to see, and they're going to get this with every forecast at 10 and 4 when the storms start to visit us. It's very helpful, as you can see. As you receive a large amount of surge in an area, you'll be able to see real time where that surge is going to be specifically in your area. So when you utilize this product, not only can the folks see it, but we can always see it too. And I think it's going to help us moving forward when we start predicting specific storms, the tracks inside, outside the cone of error, and what type of effect it's going to have on our parish. So here's the newest product, the Storm Surge Watch and Warning. And the one thing about this is going to show you exactly where your warnings are going to be. It's almost like a hurricane or tropical storm warning. You're now going to get a surge warning. And with the surge warning, you're going to know exactly what your inundation level is going to be in that particular area. What they're factoring in there is they're factoring in that exact storm track and what the predicted track is inside that cone and even a little bit outside of that cone. So you kind of get an idea of what you're going to experience. The only thing about this is they're only going to give this to you 48 hours out. So even though it's a good tool to have, it won't be our sole decision-making tool for evacuations. We will have already made that decision because you need enough clearance time to get your citizens out safely. But it will help us in protecting those assets and flood fighting. And so I think it's a very good tool that we can absolutely use. And certainly if the storm doesn't come to our area and it kind of like Ike in 2008 goes more towards Texas, we still receive some surge, and you'll be able to see what that's going to be, even though you're not evacuating. Our Public Works Department will want to know how much water are we going to be taking on because of this. So a very good tool. So our evacuation plans, obviously we still go to Tangipahoa and Hammond High School, and I will echo the words that Jason said last year. If you get an opportunity to thank the folks in Tangipahoa for allowing us to utilize their facilities and their wraparound services to protect our citizens, do so, because it's very, very difficult to find a place to go and to take your citizens where you feel comfortable and they have that type of service. So our school buses will still pick up our evacuees from their home, and they will provide assistance for the pets as well, as you may have seen in our assisted evacuation video that was put together. Being short, I'll try to take any questions that you may have.